What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Movement Mindset powered by Station Athletics. I'm Chris Hardenberg here with Dan Wallenstein. Stein?
Whatever.
Okay. Wallenstein we'll go with. Yeah. So Dan was a coach at our Sparta location previously. He had to step away because he actually opened up a physical therapy clinic in town. Mm-hmm. And so we had connected a while back, and he's like, I'd love to come on the podcast. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to have you. I have a bunch of stuff lined up. And this is probably like 6 months ago at this point. But then I was like, all right, Dan, let's get you on. So welcome to the podcast.
Glad to be here.
So let's just provide some background on you first. So who are you? What do you do? How'd you get involved with professional?
So, my job is I'm a physical therapist, and the way I kind of came, it's a really long, circuitous story because it's actually my second time working for professional physical therapy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I started out as an athletic trainer. I worked at Ithaca College. I worked at a high school, a middle school, and my first job after leaving Ithaca College was to work for professional physical therapy.
Okay.
And so they hired me basically to do outreach to go and train kids at the high school and then help out with the PTs in the clinic.
When were you at Ithaca?
I was at Ithaca 2000. I was a student there from 2002 to 2006.
Okay.
And then I worked there 2006, 2007.
Okay, so just the 1 year.
Yeah.
Okay, the only reason why I asked, and I'll let you get back, is my brother went to Ithaca College.
Okay.
And so I was like, I wonder if they cross paths, but no, my brother's younger than me, so would not have crossed paths.
Probably.
So anyways, sorry, you went from Ithaca, started working for professional.
Yep. Yeah, and so I worked for professional for about 4 years, and then 4 or 5, around 5, 6 years sometime.
Yeah.
And then I was about to be too old to join the military, so I had to join the military and took a little break from helping people. Spent some time trying to hurt people and break their stuff. And my wife said, "Find a safer job." So I was in the middle of interviewing for middle management stuff, like project managers, because that's what you do when you're a company level officer leaving the military. Is you go into middle management because there's not much civilian translation to heavy machine guns and explosives and stuff. So, and then when you're leaving the military, you have to, or at the time you had to go through this class, which is hey, this is how you can talk to civilians. This is how you dress for a job interview.
This is how you talk to real people.
Yeah, because you can't you can talk to Marines one way, but you can't talk to normal people the same way. And so I had been a grown up before. I knew I had done a resume. I had done the job interview thing before, so I kind of knew what was going on. And a lot of kids, if you go in and you're 17 years old and you get out after 20 something years of that, you don't function. You don't have that same knowledge.
Yeah.
But one of the things they made you do is take the the personality quiz. What job should you have?
Okay.
And so I took the personality quiz, and it said that I should stay in the military, which wasn't an option. That was the number one thing. And then the second thing was physical therapy. It's okay, yeah, team environment, high pace. I can do that. I know what that's like. So I got out. I basically called up my friends who ran the sports medicine program. I was like, hey, I'm coming back, and they said, all right, great. And I think they might have fired somebody to hire me back.
Oh, snap.
But so I came in and I said, hey, I'm going to go to PT school. This is what my career trajectory is going to look like. And they said, great. And so then I got through school, got my license, started working as a PT.
Okay.
I moved up here when my daughter was born, and we didn't have an office up here. So I was driving 2 hours down to Cliffside Park.
Oh my gosh.
I was driving all the way to Warwick. And so I basically said, why don't we have an office in Sparta as a joke to one of our directors that worked in the area. And they're like, okay. And then within the next couple of weeks, I got a call hey, do you want to open an office in Sparta? And it's absolutely.
Yeah.
So that was kind of, it started a long process of being able to be my own boss and do things the way I like to do them.
Yeah, and I remember, I think you were at Sparta coaching still when that all happened.
Yeah.
And I remember us having that conversation because we had spoken previously, and you had told me you were. You could correct me if I'm wrong, but you were spending most of your time in Warwick, I think. Yeah. So it's a hike.
Yeah.
And I remember, and you have a small daughter, and so I remember you being like, "Yeah, I'm going to be opening in Sparta." I was like, "Dude, that's freaking awesome. And you were like, yeah, I'm trading one stress for another, but I'd much rather have this stress than that.
Look, you need drones, you need people who punch a clock. You need people who are just going to show up and like do the work and then leave. But the stress and I'll call it like the stress and excitement of like being in charge, controlling your own destiny, like being the one to make things happen, being able to put yourself in that friction point. You get the benefit of also being able to do that and reap the rewards. And like stress is stress. And it's like, would you rather have stress of showing up and working for somebody else and like complaining about the things you don't like, or the stress of being able to make things happen the way that you want to make them happen?
Yeah, and I think that's a really cool perspective, and we'll kind of get more into what we were talking about, but we're here, so we're going to talk about that. It's really cool to you have a good perspective, because it's like a lot of people, unfortunately, because things are going to not go your way in business, and honestly, we were talking off air. To be fair, there was a lot that didn't go your way over the past couple months, with your wife's health situation, and so it's like you can either pout about it and take a victim mentality, or you can say, all right, this is what I'm being faced with. How do we solve this problem? How do I pivot? What do I go do next? And it is stressful, but it's a much better approach to take that accountability and be like, all right, I'm going to figure this out, versus just things happen to me and then you're stressed and also can't change your situation.
Yeah, I mean, there's with everything, like especially like I see it all the time with people who have injuries and surgeries. Like either things are happening to you, or you are steering the ship, and maybe you can't control everything, but you can find the things that you have control over, and if you can assert your influence, like it changes a lot.
Yeah.
And people who life happened to don't tend to do very well.
Right.
And like I'm a victim of being able to just be where there are opportunities and recognize it. Cause like I could have easily said like, nah, I don't need that stress. I don't need that in an office. And I could have very easily just been like, yeah, whatever. Like I just drive and
this is the way it is. And I'm going to have a sucky drive for the rest of my life, and it is what it is.
Yep. And it's, if you can find the things that you can control and assert influence and have a bias for action, like you're going to do a lot better in general.
Yeah. So, when we had connected, I reached out to you earlier this week or late last week. I forget what it was. And I was like, whenever I have someone on who is not like a member interview, like when I have an expert on, I'm always like, hey, what do you want to talk about? Yeah. I was like, what do you want to talk about? Right. And, I'll get sometimes responses like, oh, maybe this, or, whatever you want to talk about. You were very much like, I'd love to talk about this. So I thought that was really awesome, because it's like, all right, this is a topic that is probably very poignant and central to Dan. So before we get to that, let's start broad and then go micro. So broadly, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Like generally, what are your thoughts when it comes to training and rehab? Like what are some of the principles you go by?
So like, I mean, the principles for training and for rehab are really the same.
Okay.
And I've said this a lot. I've said this as often as I can. Like there's no fine line between training and rehab. It's a continuum. And what you have is someone who doesn't have pain or an injury, and you have someone who does have pain and an injury. And the idea is to take someone who does have pain and injury and bring them back to someone who doesn't. And again, I'm stealing this. I can't take credit for it, but somebody smarter than me said that rehab is training in the presence of pain or injury.
Interesting. I like that.
It doesn't stop. Like the principles that you use are the same. It's progressive overload. You're applying a specific load, a specific stress in the form of exercise, usually, in order to get the body to change. And the big thing with the rehab is it's just much, much more specific.
Sure.
It's you've got, you have this one specific problem, and that's what you have to address in order to return somebody back to their prior level of function or higher, so that they're much less likely to end up back on my table in my office.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. And I've always said physical therapy is an interesting gig, because any good physical therapist, and listen, like any job out there, there's good physical therapists and bad ones, right? It's almost like your job is to like not put yourself out of business, but it's like I've talked to a couple, I've interviewed a couple on this podcast, and all the ones have said like, I want to treat this person so well, they don't have to come back.
Yeah. Like I joke, like when someone's done with me, like the next time I see them, they should be dropping off a friend.
Right.
And if they come back for the same problem I saw from the first time around, like I didn't do a good enough job.
Yeah.
And it's true. Like you kind of have to make peace with the fact that like nobody really wants to be there. No one's like, man, I love physical therapy. They're like, they might be happy with the result, and that's what we want. And they might be like, and if they can enjoy the process, even better.
Yeah.
But like people don't want to have to go to physical therapy.
No, it's a grudge purchase. Yeah. No one's like you said, no one's signing up to go. They literally are only there because they have to be. Cool. So I love that idea. And to be honest, someone who's coming from a training background, I never had that put to me that it's like rehab is training in the presence of injury, or very poignant, direct training. So I think that's really cool. So to frame it, that's your broad thoughts. And when I had reached out to you, you were like, I would love to talk about training, strength training or resistance training in older population and what the research says on that. So our main demo here at Station Athletics is 35 to 50 years old. So let's start precursor to people who are quote older age. Why is it important? And you could tap into the research here for someone who, let's say, is in their 40s to get started on a fitness program, and how does that reflect into longevity or independence in older age?
So first, I'm gonna cover my butt and say, don't take anything that I'm saying as medical advice. Consult your physician, your providers.
You sound like an infomercial.
but the big thing is movement is really like movement, exercise. It's the fountain. It's the one thing that we can do that can change our body in a positive manner. Like we're designed to move. Humans are designed to be in motion, and like it's never too late to start. But if you're starting in your 30s or your 40s, you're probably behind a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. But the things that we know is that the body changes as we age, and we're a little bit less resilient as we age. And if we don't build ourselves up when we're younger, that decline is really rapid. So if we're looking at like our function over time curve, like we want it to be really, really flat, so we're super high functioning with a rapid drop off when we die in our sleep.
Yeah.
Right. And what no one wants is to have that like really, really gradual decline where like we spend a really long time instead of our golden years and like our rust years where we can't move and everything stinks and we're really non-functional. And a lot of the changes that we can make when we're younger, those will carry over, and it's a lot easier to sustain and maintain things like bone health, joint health, cardiovascular health over like if we can build that base early than if we try to build it later.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, like I joke, I could rather keep an orthopedist in business than a cardiologist. I'd rather have people wear out their joints than have them have problems of like heart disease and all that stuff.
And it's so different from what you said. It's like there's a difference between, I'm struggling to find the words, but almost like just being alive and having functionality in your later years. You know what I mean? Like, okay, you have one person who lived to 95, but for the last 20 years of their life, they couldn't get up and down stairs. People had to help them with things versus the person who maybe died at 75 or 80 years old, but they were walking with their grandkids. They could still pick them up. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And there's such a difference. I'm sure Dr. Peter Attia, have you heard of him? Yeah. So I reference his book Outlive a lot because have you ever read that book?
It's on my Kindle, but I haven't read it yet.
Yeah. So I had to audiobook it. You know, I'm that classic person who said I read that book and it's like I didn't actually read a single word.
Whatever works.
But it was one of those things where a lot of that book was frankly over my head a little bit. You would probably get more out of it than I would. But one of the things he kept repeating is with a lot of the studies or biomarkers, number one thing to increase this, exercise. Number one thing to increase this, exercise. Number one thing to increase this, exercise.
So you see that a lot, especially in like neurodegenerative conditions like Alzheimer's, dementia. Every single drug they put on the market, everything they test, it underperforms compared to high intensity aerobic exercise. Like everything.
So crazy.
Everything. And like some of that is because the body's a really remarkable thing. Like it's designed with a lot of like safeguards and checks and balances. And like, so our blood-brain barrier that keeps all this bad stuff out of our brain, it also stops medication from getting past it. It stops a lot of other stuff. And so when we do really high intensity exercise, our body secretes growth hormone, and that comes from the brain. It secretes brain-derived neurotropic effect that helps those neurons like make connections and prune connections and learn and grow. And that, it comes in the brain and it stays in the brain. And we can get it to do that with high intensity exercise.
Yeah.
And like, it's one of those things where we're designed to move. And when we can stop moving from an evolutionary perspective, like we're not going to be able to get food, we're going to become a burden, and like we're going to drop off.
Right.
And like a really great example of this is, are you familiar with the blue zones?
Not off the top of my head, but maybe continue.
So like a researcher was looking at like, where do people live to 110?
Oh, yeah.
And like they're called blue zones just because he used like blue push pins on the map.
Yeah.
But in Sardinia, there's a blue zone. But it's only a blue zone where there's like crazy amount of hills, because people who live the same lifestyle on flat ground and didn't have to walk up and down hills and do that like rigorous activity daily didn't live that long.
Right.
Because it didn't stress their system enough.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, because it's like you can get a similar response to like a weight training response going down a hill because you have that eccentric load, right? That's like anyone who's done like a lot of squats, they're always like, going down the stairs hurt my legs more than going up the stairs because you're eccentrically loading. And then going up the hill, you're going to get a lot of cardiovascular response. So that's really interesting that you say that, and it makes a lot of sense. And to go back to the neurological standpoint, right? Like my background, I was a physical education teacher. I got into training. So very much like in the gym type stuff, right? And so like to hear exercise helps with biomarkers when it comes to your blood or cardiovascular or musculature, to me, that's like, well, of course, right?
Yeah.
But to hear what it does for your brain, I was like, I would have never thought, kind of like what you said, how it compares with Alzheimer's or dementia, that like people who are active have much lower rates of both of those things.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's really, really cool. So that's why it's important. Like, hey, if you're 30s, 40s, even 50s, and it's like you haven't been in a regular exercise program, like Dan said, we're not going to lie. You are a little bit behind the 8 ball, but it's better to start. So we go forward. What does the research say for older adults when it comes to strength training and resistance training?
So the research shows that like it just has a lot of really good effects.
Okay.
The NSCA published a white paper on like, dosing and all this stuff, but fundamentally, you should get some form of resistance training. Like the World Health Organization recommends 75 minutes of vigorous activity a week with at least 2 days of dedicated resistance training.
Okay.
And if you look at like addressing specific problems, there's really good research that shows that if you're engaged in resistance training, it increases like hippocampal volume, which is the part of your brain that's responsible for like helping you like remember things and learn.
Okay.
And then if you have bone issues, osteoporosis, osteopenia, there's phenomenal research that shows that high intensity resistance training and impact, like jumping, landing, that type of stuff, can reverse those changes.
Yeah.
And the big thing is a lot of people are afraid to ask people to work hard enough. And so what you'll see is a lot of people, they'll have the senior exercise class and they'll have the chair yoga, and anything is infinitely better than nothing.
Sure.
Anything is better than nothing. But if you have someone lifting a 2-pound weight and they can do it 30 times, it's not going to generate any change. Like, you have to be at that threshold where you're overreaching a little bit in order to actually develop any type of change. And, with that, there are a lot of barriers to entry. Like, it's scary if you ask somebody to do something like that. High intensity Olympic weightlifting can be scary for a lot of people. So group settings tend to be better.
Sure.
In group settings, they improve like compliance. They improve people's participation. They give like a little bit of that social kind of, what do you call it? Like the socialization.
Yep.
Like it's more enjoyable. Coaching is really important.
Sure.
It's always recommended that they have supervision and coaching, unless they're, if they're training age, if they've been lifting weights since they were like, 12 years old, they probably don't need it.
Sure.
But if they're novel, if it's new, coaching is really important because they can't hurt themselves. There's, just like anything else, all exercise programs, they have risks.
Yeah.
Like, and if you're playing sport, the only safe position is left bench. If you're going to participate, there's a risk.
Yeah.
And that's why you want to make sure that you start at a relatively reasonable intensity and build slowly. And it's, there's really not much difference when you're saying, like, with this older person, we're going to train them versus a younger person.
Yeah.
But as we age, certain things happen. You're going to have some arthritis, potentially some other issues. So if you're looking at getting an older individual into strength training, you want to minimize, like, delayed onset muscle soreness.
Sure.
Like that going down the stairs. So a really easy entry point is sled pushes, because there's no
eccentric.
There's
yeah.
no negative. So you really decrease the risk of DOMs. So like sled pushes, hand over hand sled pulls. You have to make sure that they're comfortable with it, and that it's basically, you can link it to what's their function.
Yeah.
Like, say, what do you have trouble with? Like, you can't lift a dog food. So, okay, like, it's a 50-pound sack of dog food. You want to be able to do that. You want people's functional reserve to be well over what they have to do on a daily basis. So
right.
If the heaviest thing they have to lift is a sack of dog food, and that's the heaviest they can lift, imagine if you had to do a 1-rep max deadlift every single day.
Seriously. Yes.
It would be unsustainable, which is what gets people into a lot of trouble.
Right. And then you have these older people that it's like they're constantly have back issues, but it's like, well, no wonder you have back issues. You're doing a max deadlift every time you're trying to pick up a bag of dog food.
Yeah, and that's not the only reason, but it's a big part of it.
Sure.
Like, if you have to do that, it's going to significantly affect your ability to do the rest of the things you need to do in your life.
Yeah.
And so that's what the research says is the bare minimum. And so when they make recommendations, it's like, this is what most people are going to be able to do, and it's going to get them some benefit.
Okay.
And if you're looking at reversing osteoporosis, kind of the benchmark study was the Lift More trial, which is an acronym, and they did it in Australia. And basically they took a group of people, and they did it first in women with osteoporosis, then they repeated it with men, and they had them do a 5x5 of like back squat, deadlift, push press, and then they had them do like jumping pull-ups for the landing impact.
Okay.
And what they found was that they didn't hurt anybody in the study, and subsequently, like, people have been hurt reproducing it, and that's, injuries can happen.
Sure.
But they didn't no one got hurt. They kept it up for 6 months, and they reversed osteoporosis. And a lot of these little old ladies, they got taller.
What?
Yeah, on average they got taller because their back muscles were stronger, so it pulled them out of that little kyphotic curve, which is like, it was just a random thing they didn't expect, but they found it.
Interesting.
And so they compared it with the usual care and a blue usual care out of the water. And then when they repeated it in men, they compared it to another treatment, and they said, it's not fair because it works so well. We're going to double the dosage of the usual care treatment for men.
Okay.
And it still blew it out of the water.
Interesting.
And so if you're going to do something like that for that effect, it's got to be 3 times a week. It's got to be that intense. So they were doing 80% of 1-rep max for 5x5. And
wow.
if they could do 7 reps, they increased the load.
Well, that's for those of you that don't know, that's progressive overload, right? It's like whenever you have something that you can now. So if I was to do a 5x5 and let's say I'm doing 5 bench press reps at 135, right? And the first time it feels like, okay, it felt like an 8 or 9 out of 10, right? And then I follow progression over the next couple weeks, and I do 135 again, and it feels like a 6 out of 10. And it's like, okay, I need to either increase the reps or increase the weight, and that's the only way you build progressive overload. Now, it's not linear, right? There's some undulation with that. But if you're not going to do that, that's where things stay flat. And it is interesting, like, that's from the research side. And then for me and our coaches who are with these people day to day, right? I've seen most, when you get to a certain age, and you can attest to this, like, you're not... For people who've been training a while, you're not going to all of a sudden put all this muscle on, right? Like 60, 65, 70 years old, you're not building all this muscle, right? It's literally just fighting off, I apologize for the lack of a better term, it's fighting off decay, right? It's fighting off the drop off. But I've had, like, at the same time, we have a guy who signed on in Ledgewood. I think he's coming up to the end of his 6 weeks. He hasn't worked out almost ever, and he actually put muscle on.
So I'm gonna give you a little bit of hope.
Okay.
So when we say, like, there's not a guaranteed decline. So basically, like, if you are an Olympic athlete and you're doing everything, your nutrition is 100% perfect, you're sleeping like 10 hours a night, your training is perfect, you're going to get to that like 99.9% of your true genetic capacity.
Sure.
Most of us, even if we've been training since we were young, haven't had that opportunity.
Right.
So what lowers isn't our absolute potential. It's like our relative abilities, that ceiling gets lower.
Okay.
So unless you're up high to that ceiling, you can continue to make improvement and make
Interesting.
progress.
That's a good point.
So there's no guaranteed decline. So if you have a training age, if you start working out and you're 50, you could probably get away with getting on like a novice linear progression, and you can ride that out because you don't have any experience and your muscles haven't, you have a ton of opportunity for them to grow and to develop.
Sure.
And then your nervous system has great ability to adapt and to change and to get more efficient as you're moving, and your cardiovascular system can adapt. But if you're if you were a super elite athlete, that ceiling's going to come down lower and lower, and you're going to have to work super hard to maintain that 99%.
Sure.
And eventually it's going to go down.
Yeah.
So to say that like we're guaranteed to decline is not accurate.
Sure.
But to say that like that ceiling of our maximum capacity is going to drop, and at some point we might meet it, that's probably accurate.
Okay. That makes perfect sense to me.
So there's like, and if people can do the right things, if they can train, if they can exercise, like they can gain function, they can gain muscle. For a lot of us, like if we have a really old training age, that ceiling is just too close to our heads.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. So like I said at the beginning, when I reached out to you, what do you want to talk about? You were quick to be like, this is what I want to talk about. So why is that? Like that this clearly is like important to you. So why was it so quick to be like, this is definitely what I want to talk about?
I mean, it's like my master's degree is in exercise physiology. I spent a ton of time working with young athletes. I spent a ton of time working with older people. And the one thing that you see is like the people who are stronger tend to do better. And if we can get people to do this stuff, it's going to make a huge difference for their lives.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those things, if we're looking at risk for all-cause mortality, they're two really easy screens. We put you on a leg press and we have you do a 1 rep max, and we check your grip strength.
Yeah.
And the stronger you are, the less likely you are to die from all causes, from cancer to car accidents.
Wow.
So what we look at is what are the things that are super low barrier to entry? What are things that are going to have the biggest outsized, improvement? And it's resistance training and it's strength training. And like people who do that are generally going to be healthier.
Right.
And what you'll see in the research also is if it's a community in a group-based setting, people are also going to do better because they're going to be more compliant. They're going to stick with it. And it's one of those things that the outcomes are so good. And it's something that in physical therapy, especially, we're so bad at. Like we underdose people to a criminal extent.
Sure.
So much so that like the president of the American Physical Therapy Association came out and she basically gave a speech saying like, hey, it's absolute negligence if we're not asking people to work hard enough, because a lot of people are afraid to ask someone who's like 75, 85 years old with arthritis and a bad back to do really hard work.
Yeah.
Because you don't like, if you make them feel worse, if you make them feel sore, if you make them so sore that they can't sit down on the toilet, they're probably not going to come back.
Right.
But that's like, you have to find that sweet spot where you're asking them to work hard enough to get the big gains in order to see the big changes.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that can also come down to expectation setting.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like when I get a new client in, I tell them all the time, start slow with the classes, because you're gonna be sore anyways, right?
Yeah.
Like you might be in class and you might be lifting something and be like, I think I could do more. In your first couple weeks, that's where you should live, because you're gonna be sore anyway because you've never done this before.
Yep.
So like I'm setting expectations that's like you're gonna be sore. But at the same time, it's like I don't want you so crippled, because it's like if the goal was to cripple you, I could cripple you no problem.
Yeah.
Like it's not like people are like, oh, the workout needs to be super hard. The easiest thing to do is to just make a hard workout to cripple someone, right? Like if you really wanted to cripple someone, Dan could walk in here with a baseball bat and no one would walk out of here happy, right? So it's like the sweet spot is 100% right. It's like you need to set expectations that you're going to feel this way, but if we do it right, you'll feel this way and not this way.
Yeah.
So it's threading the needle, but then providing the right dose response to be able to get that. And that's kind of like where science meets art when it comes to whether it's physical therapy or training. And I think I love what you're saying. And that's why a lot of, I mean, we're not unique in this, but why a lot of like your group fitness style training, whether it's CrossFit, F45, Orange Theory, like some of those are not great resistance training programs, but why group fitness is so attractive to so many people is because it's like, you have the social aspect, so you make friends. You have the energy. It's like, how many times have you gone into a class and it's like, I'm not really feeling working out today, but the music's bumping, everyone's excited. So it's like, all of a sudden you're like into it. And it's like, you would have never worked out that hard if you were working by yourself. And then the key is coaching. Like you said, it's like, if I can keep people safe and push them to the right level, sky's the limit. So we went over a lot. And I think I think this is a super important topic because whether you know this or not, we're all going to get older.
if we're lucky.
Yeah. And so it's like function's going to change. And so it's like, kind of like you said, if you can set the right habits early, they're going to map longer. So if you were to take everything we went over in this podcast and was to boil it down into like one really succinct nugget to deliver to people to walk away with, what would it be?
I would say like, you have to move, you have to lift heavy things, and you have to keep doing it for as long as you can do it in order to be able to do it for as long as you can live.
I like that. We're going to end on that. That was a good phrase to end on. Dan, thanks for coming in, brother.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you taking the time. Guys, if you're in the Sparta area, not even just in Sparta, if you're in the Sparta area and you got a boo-boo, a little nick here or there, come see Dan. He's really good at what he does. What's the address of the clinic?
191 Woodport Road.
Okay, so you're really close to here.
Yeah, I'm like right around the corner.
Great. So right in the center of town, if you need anything, whether it's you, your mom, your dad, your son, your daughter, come see Dan. He'll get you hooked up. As always, guys, like and subscribe to us on YouTube and Instagram. Give us a 5-star rating on the podcast platform you listen on. We'll see you at the gym.